Hi, I'm Alicia Butler-Pierre, host of the Business Infrastructure Podcast, the show where we offer practical tips, tools, and tactics to scale your fast-growing small business with less pain. The video that you're about to watch is actually a snippet of my interview with Troy Trewin. But before we get into the video, make sure you subscribe first so that you can continue to receive resources like this to calm the chaos of fast growth. Now, let's get to the video.
Online education seems to be all the rage these days, and it's no surprise. Our quest for knowledge extends beyond traditional classrooms. When the pandemic hit, online education was the only option for educators and students alike. This is the Business Infrastructure Podcast, the show where we offer strategies, tactics, and resources to cure back office blues and to keep your business operating as good on the inside as it looks on the outside. My name is Alicia Butler-Pierre, and we're about to discover not only what it takes to build and scale an online course, but also gain an appreciation for the real-world experience required to make that course successful. This episode is brought to you by Equilibria Incorporated, the company behind this podcast, where we design scale-ready business infrastructure for fast-growing small businesses. Troy Trewin is the true definition of a serial entrepreneur. He's the founder of GrowASmallBusiness.com, co-founder of the Distilleries Institute, and has served as CEO for numerous smaller companies, as well as served on several boards. His latest achievement is scaling an online course to assist others interested in starting a distillery business. As you'll hear, creating a successful online course is not as simple as recording a few videos, regurgitating information you've studied. No, it requires providing a learning experience, one that can only come from mastering your craft over time and distilling it in a way that can easily be shared with others. This is episode 215, New Zealand and Beyond, how Troy Trewin scaled an online course for distilleries.
My name's Troy Trewin. I'm the founder of Grow a Small Business. I'm based in Hobart, Australia. Hobart's on an island called Tasmania, just south of Melbourne. And it's a beautiful place to live. I've been here 11 years after 4 years in London, 10 years in Melbourne, and then I grew up in country Victoria. So, yeah, absolutely love where I live. I like to do things that are challenging. So I did 2 degrees at once at university. I've got a Bachelor in Computing and in Accounting. And then in 1996, I graduated, and early in the next year, I started working for PricewaterhouseCoopers, who is now the largest accounting firm in the world. I was there for 3 years. So late 99, I quit because I always knew what I wanted to be when I grew up, which was a business owner. I watched my parents grow a small fuel business from nothing into a medium-sized business. Dad was selling 100 million litres of fuel a year, doing about $80 million per annum. And then he retired in his late 50s. So I saw not just all the tough times they went through, but the successes and the growth. And I, just was in awe at what all the moving parts that went into running and growing a small business into something a bit bigger. So late 99, I quit PwC and started 2 internet companies. I was working 100-hour weeks, which is both silly and unsustainable.
Did you catch all that? Shortly after Troy graduated university with 2 degrees, he worked at a large global company and 3 years later quit to pursue entrepreneurship. He started not 1, but 2 companies around the same time. What some may have seen as having a glutton for punishment, Troy saw as an opportunity. Eventually, he relocated to London, where he started or bought into other companies. By 2011, he had an epiphany while relaxing on a beach in Thailand.
I had the idea of how I could help more business owners because in London and Melbourne, I'd be asked a lot for advice from small business owners. And so I registered the domain GrowASmallBusiness.com and started to write about 30 blog posts. And since then have been helping other business owners. And in the last 10 years, I moved away from technology, working in owning technology companies, and moved into the distilling industry, mainly whiskey.
His move to the distilling industry turned out to be a smart one. In true Troy fashion, he found himself not only running growasmallbusiness.com, but also becoming the CEO of 3 companies and with an ownership stake in New Zealand Whisky Collection, home to the only remaining mature New Zealand whiskey in the world. He's particularly proud of his time at Lark Distillery. Lark was a family-owned business, now listed on the stock exchange in Australia, that paved the way for other smaller-scale distilleries.
I ran that for a couple of years as the first CEO there when the family sold out. There was no systems at that time for the next chapter of growth, so we had to find the new talent to come on to help the business grow. And the family obviously were quite close to those team members. So that was a really challenging time, but interesting to run a business that I didn't have equity in, that was big and well-renowned.
Soon after Lark Distillery, Troy found himself back at New Zealand Whisky Collection, this time as CEO. He led a management buyout as well as a successful crowdfunding campaign to build a distillery. Word about his subject matter expertise and business acumen started spreading, and soon he began either sitting on or chairing different boards in the industry. But how does a guy with a background in accounting and technology get into a space like that? The answer, it turned out, was because he wanted to transition out of service-based businesses. This was another revelation he had back when he was in Thailand.
So I thought, when I get back to Australia, I'm going to move into a product-based business. And after I got back, moved to Tasmania, a good friend of mine had just found these old whiskey casks in New Zealand. This is well before the craft whiskey boom, particularly here in Australia. So he had bought the last 443 casks of New Zealand whiskey. And so we started rebranding and exporting that, and that's going great. So that was really the catalyst for the move into distilling.
And as fate would have it, Distilleries stuck.
Yeah, that's right. But I think it was having that mindset of I want to move into a product-based business now, not professional services anymore. The opportunity led itself to me, I believe.
And that takes us to 2019, the year Troy's scale tale begins. After several years working and being a key player in the distillery industry, opportunity once again knocked.
So a friend of mine, about 3 years ago, we caught her for a coffee for a few times, and she was running an in-person training business called the Whisky Academy. So you'd have to come to Tasmania here, spend about a week. She would organise the logistics of visiting distilleries, some bit of class time, accommodation, etc. And she's not very detail-orientated, and so was quite frustrated. The business went well, but didn't really want to have all that logistics and admin to have to deal with.
In other words, she didn't want to deal with the back office operations.
So I'd been mentoring her for quite a few years since I was at Lark, where we met. And I said to her, well, I've been studying up on the online education space. It's growing quite quickly. And this year would have been mid-2019. And I encouraged her to do a test of some of her content with an online product. So 3 months later, she came back to the coffee table. She had done that. It had good traction, good response. And then she said, I just can't do it on my own. And I said, okay, well, I'm happy to help. I'll jump in. So I became a part owner. But at the same time, I said, I think we need other skills as the founders of this business.
This recognition would become a cornerstone of their success. From Troy's vast experience, he knew they needed to build business infrastructure to scale it. Business infrastructure is a system for linking people, processes, and tools to create a foundation for growth that's repeatable, sustainable, and profitable. His friend had the education experience. He had the management, finance, technology, and strategy skills, but they needed additional skills to round out their leadership team.
And so I suggested another friend of ours, Brett Steele, who ran a Drink Tasmania tour business. And he also had his own whiskey brand as well. And it was Ian, who is in Melbourne. He was at Starwood for 7 or 8 years, pretty much from the day they opened. And they've recently just won 12 awards at the San Francisco Spirits Award, this distillery in Melbourne, which is huge. No distillery's ever done anything like that. And they're very successful. They've scaled. So he's a very experienced distiller. So he brings the technical distilling side to the business.
And so the Distillers Institute was born. With an all-star team in place, they needed to make their partnership official.
Okay, I hope you enjoyed watching that video. You can catch the full interview at businessinfrastructure.tv or by clicking the link in the description box below. That way you'll know exactly when the next video drops. I'll see you next time.
Join us next week for another episode of Business Infrastructure with Alicia Butler-Pierre.